going to take some white gum paste. And if you're making purple or blue flowers, I suggest that you start with a light color blue or a light color purple. That way when you dust it, it's easier to get that color. Okay, so I'm going to measure it to the third size from the biggest. There we go. Again, form it into a ball first. It's always easier that way. Okay. And then put pressure on one side of the ball to form it into a teardrop. And then I will take my fine scissors I'll rub some vegetable shortening on it so that it doesn't stick to my gum paste. I'll take the gum paste, poke it through the middle with one side of the scissor, and then I want to make sure that the end of my scissor is halfway through the teardrop. So I would cut. That's my first cut. Then I would turn it to the other side. Again, start from the middle where I started from. And then before I cut that, I will look from this side to where my scissor is, and from that side to where my scissor is. And now I know that I need to make an adjustment because one side is actually smaller than the other. Okay, I guess that's fine. So now I'll make a cut. And now you see I have two equal sides of the gum paste. And then I will cut, I'll position my scissor. I'm going to make 3 cuts here, so I want to make sure that all 3 petals are going to be the same size. Make a cut there. So there you go. Again, I'm going to do a third. Okay, so now I have about 6 equal petals from that teardrop that I made. Then I will take my Dresden tool, which is the tool that's shaped like a foot from your gum paste tool set. I'll rub some vegetable shortening on the thin part of the tool as opposed to the fatter part, and also rub a little bit of vegetable shortening on my middle finger. If you use your right hand, I would put that on the middle finger of my left hand. That way I have a control of my tool much better. So I will take whatever petal that I'm working on and place it right on my middle finger. I will let it rest there, and then I will press my tool down and pull it up. That way I end up with a pointed petal. Because if you just press it down, you will have a square tip. So again, press it down, pull it up, press it down, pull it up. Press down and pull up, press down, pull up, press down, pull up. And so you have a 6 petal. And this exact technique that I'm showing you right now is the same technique that you could use if you wanted to make a daisy and you don't have a cutter for. But of course it's a lot easier to have it, because if you're going to make a whole lot of flowers, it's just faster. So after I've done that, I'm going to take some tiny yellow stamens. You can also use white, whichever you prefer. Fold it in half and cut it. But I'm just going to use 3, and usually there are 2 heads that comes in 1 strand. So I'm just going to take 3 of these and I take my brush and brush it with gum glue, just the tip. So I'm going to take those and insert it. on the center of the flower. So you want to make sure that the stamens actually get into the gum paste so that they don't come off once the gum paste is dry. And you can feel it. After you insert it, you can actually feel if the stamens are already in there. And I wanted to use like odd numbers on the stamen. I use 3 or 5 or 7. Sometimes I'd use 6, but very, very rarely. Alrighty, so that's our finished flower. Isn't that cute and very easy? So I'm going to take a block of foam, and I'm just going to put it right there and then just let it dry for about, I don't know, 24, 48 hours until it's dry. And so now we're going to make a bud. And again, I'm going to just condition my gum paste again by kneading it in between my fingers. And this time I am going to make it like 4th to the biggest. So I'm just going to make a ball about that size. If it gets in, if it gets into that space, and that's the size that we're looking for. There we go. So it's nice and snug. So again, I am going to shape this into a teardrop, just like how we did it the first time. But this time I am not going to make the tip too rounded, because that's actually going to be the head of our bud. So I'm going to press my forefinger and my thumb and basically put pressure halfway through the teardrop and just go back and forth, and you'll see you will form that kind of like a tail. And this is exactly how a jasmine bud is done as well. So again, I'm going to take about a 3-inch wire, brush it with a little bit of glue. And you don't need to hook this one. You can just insert it as is from the bottom. And every time I insert wire, I also want to make sure that I have my thumb and forefinger kind of like guiding it so I can feel where it's going. So I'm just going to insert it like halfway to right here. And I'm just going to go back and forth again to make that tail end longer. And I'm going to make that up to about, I'd say, 1.5 inches. There you go. And I will take my modeling tool like this. If you don't have this tool, this is actually a tool that you can find. This is a tool that you can find at the local art supply store. If you don't have that, you can also use a fine needle tool. So with a fine needle tool, you'll just basically use the side of that needle and press it down so you create that groove, just like how a flower bud looks like. If you have this tool, then you'll just go rock back and forth to create that line that goes from the tip all the way down to the bud. And that is your finished bud. And per cluster, I would make about, say, 12 to 15 buds, and 12 to 15 buds and 6 to 8 flowers. And that's one more good thing about this whole cluster, is that you make more buds than the flowers, and so it goes really, really fast. So I would take my buds And I use this tool. This is made by Gem. It's a florist tape and ribbon shredder, and it just makes my life so much easier because I like to cut my ribbons, or not my ribbons, but my floral tape in half every time I have to wrap something with floral tape, because I find that if I use the whole width of the tape, it's too thick. It comes out too thick. So this way I can cut it in half, and if you don't have this contraption, it doesn't really matter. You can just take your scissors and just cut the floral tape in half. Not a biggie. So I'm going to stretch my floral tape to make sure that the adhesive is released, because if you don't stretch it, it's not going to be released, and it's not going to stick. And floral tapes actually just stick to itself. It doesn't stick to anything else. So I will take my forefinger and basically get the tip of that floral tape and secure it, and then I'm going to wrap this 3 to 4 buds that I have on my hand and secure it. And from there, maybe because this is the tallest one, I'll make that as a center. And from there, I'll just keep on adding buds. And every time I add a bud, as you can see, I wrap it twice. That way it's secure, and I free my hand, because we only have 2 hands, and it's kind of hard to control something more than what your hand can handle. So I take that and wrap it twice. That way it doesn't go anywhere but where I wanted it to be. And while I am adding it, I just look at it again, make sure that they're evenly spaced. So as you can see, as I'm adding it, I'm also arranging it so that I have a reference of if I need more or less on what side and stuff like that. And so I think I need more here. And if you're making white, you can also add a little bit of green on the base of the flower or of your bud, like right here. For this particular thing, I'm not going to dust it, just because I don't think it's necessary for what I needed. But of course, it's totally up to you if you wanted to dust it. Of course, it makes it look more natural to do that. So after I have clustered all of the buds, as you can see here, I'm going to take my flowers and place it at the base of my cluster, because that's how this flower grows. It actually has more buds on top, and then on the base it has more of the open flowers. So this is my 3rd flower that I'm adding. It's getting there. So I'll probably put like total of 6 flowers onto the base of this. Also, one more thing that I need to tell you when you're wrapping your flowers or whichever cluster or arrangement that you have, make sure that you wrap it all the way to the base. That way there's not a lot of wires that are exposed, because they're not really. You don't want to see the wires in there. There you go. This is the last flower that I need to add here, and we're almost done. And so I'm just going to take that, once I add my last flower, I'm just going to take that floral tape and wrap the whole stem all the way to the bottom. There we go. You see? So it looks like just one stem. You don't see all those other stems that you have previously added from all the flowers and the buds that we have. And there's your cluster. Isn't that pretty? That is so pretty, very easy, and you didn't even need a cutter to complete it.